Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, Football Edition, brought to you by primary sponsor 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today by Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and AJ Fairchild joins us once again. So thanks again for coming on the show, guys.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Well, Week 10 is here, and it's make or break for a lot of teams, and playoff football is literally right around the corner. So a lot of big games this week, and a lot of games that could decide whether teams get in or out of playoffs, and some even for conference championships. So thoughts going into this week?
Yeah, number one, this first week myself has pants on, and our back window that's usually light, I assume, is dark now. So throughout the season, you see shorts, t-shirts, and now hoodies, jackets, pants. So, but yeah, there's a couple good games this week that have playoff implications. So we'll talk about those later. But yeah, it's going to be Week 10, and we'll see what happens on Saturday, Sunday when the playoff pictures release. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's, like you said, a couple big games. And the one we talked about, Week 1, or actually the preseason game we talked about, the Antwerp Edgerton game. That's going to be a big game this weekend. And like you guys said, there's other ones that are going to teams that make or break to get in or they're going to go home. So are we sitting at home watching first week of playoffs? So.
Yep. AJ, you have any comments?
No, just I'm ready to see how the season ends up here with, like you guys said, a lot of teams are kind of riding that bubble right now, kind of decide their own fate. So we'll see who pulls through and who doesn't, and what ends up happening. Because I know some of the regions are pretty tight right now as far as points. So, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but it's going to make for some interesting fighting here at the end.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's kick it off and look how we did for last week's picks. Keith and AJ tied last week with a 16-4 record, but Keith still leads the year, and he's still in first place with a 140-38 record. And AJ is right behind him in second, just one win shy of Keith. So he's right on Keith's tail there. Tied for third is Tony and myself, and last place is Bryce with a 128-50 record. And Tony and I's record is 139-35. Or try to see here. Oh yeah. 132-46. So that's our record. Anyhow, I don't know. I still got to decide if we should do something for the winner after all this is done, but we'll probably pick into the playoffs a little bit too. So,
oh geez, more games for me to lose.
Yeah. There's still probably a lot of teams and a lot of games we can pick. So
yeah, at least for the first couple weeks, I suppose.
Yep. So. All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at Week 9 game recaps, and we'll start it off with the NWO Sports Game of the Week from Week 9 is Wauseon at Archbold, and Archbold ended up winning that game 20-12, and I feel like that game was a tale of two types of offenses, really. I mean, you have Archbold, who just ran the rock and controlled the clock the whole game long, and Wauseon has their passing offense there. And, you look at time of possession from that game, and Archbold had the ball for 32 minutes and 8 seconds compared to Wauseon's 13 minutes and 21 seconds. And it's definitely hard for Wauseon's high-powered passing offense to get going when you don't have the ball on offense. And Keith and I have talked about that throughout the year, how that's a big stat that really pays dividends. And a lot of the times the team that does control the ball for more of the game, they're the ones that come up with a win in the win column. So just looking at a couple other things from that game, Archbold had 342 total yards of offense compared to Wauseon's 80 total yards, which I think that's crazy that Wauseon had 12 points with that type of offense. But again, that's crazy to look at. And again, I think just what a great scheme going into that game, because if you look at Wauseon, to hold the ball away from them that long, that's just an excellent scheme, because they have that potential to score a lot of points with those great wide receivers, the great quarterback play, and push the ball downfield. But to go in that game, Coach Dominic, excellent job, and they pulled out a big win. So thoughts on this game, guys?
We talk about it. Sometimes keep the offense off the field as your best defense, and Archbold did a great job of that, keeping them sidelined and like you said, if they're not on the field, they can't catch passes. So.
Right.
And two big stats that really kind of determine how a game's going to turn out are going to be the third down conversions and time of possession. Yep. Those are like the two, and then turnover rates. Those kind of factor in too. But between those three stats, you can pretty much decide the game's outcome just by looking at those stats.
Yeah.
So to see Wauseon had 12 points and with only 80 total yards, it's like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, and Wauseon had 3 turnovers here is what it had listed, and you talked about third down conversions, 1 of 10 from third down. That's 10%. So, I mean, just like you were talking about, AJ.
Yeah.
Keith?
Yeah, we tried to track this on our game updates throughout the night, and we were surprised Wauseon got up to a 12-0 lead, actually, I think midway through the second quarter. And then Dominic took over and scored 3 rushing touchdowns. But, yeah, we were kind of shocked at that initially when we saw Wauseon up 7, or it was an odd score, 3-0, 5-0, and then 12-0. But it was, you keep the offense off the field. I mean, in the high school era, I mean, they control the ball for 32 minutes. I mean, that's
right.
And then Wauseon, their passing games, kind of like the old Houston Oilers back in my day, the original run and shoot. Like they had the same problem. They had high-powered offenses, but everybody always devised a defense to keep them off the field. So if the offense isn't on the field, they can't score points. And this is pretty much what happened here, it looks like.
Yeah, and Keith, you mentioned his name too just a little bit ago. Carson Dominic, he absolutely went off. 32 carries, 158 rushing yards. He was averaging 4.9 yards a carry and 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had an interception on defense. So get the ball 32 carries in a game. That's a lot for a high school running back.
That's a lot.
They had trust and faith in Dominic, and he just handled his business and just tore the Wauseon defense apart. I mean, they just couldn't stop him. And if you're averaging 4.9 yards a carry, that's pretty efficient there. And that's hard to stop. And he's just a tank. And I believe I was watching the interview at the end of the game, and Miles Holliday was interviewing him and kept on calling him, I think, like the tank or something like that.
Yeah, they called him the Diesel.
The Diesel, yeah. I mean, he really is. I mean, he just runs kids over, and he does a fantastic job at it, and that's why he's been so successful the last few years in high school. Another key athlete that stood out to me was Cade Brenner, quarterback of Archbold, and we kind of talked about him early on in the season and kind of didn't talk about him too much during the middle part, but another efficient game from him, 14 of 22, 64%, 178 passing yards, and though he didn't have any passing touchdowns, I didn't see listed for the stats, he managed the game. He did enough to push the ball downfield on the offense, and then that's what you need out of a quarterback. When you know your rushing attack's going to be there, you can rely on that. That's what you need out of a quarterback in that type of offense. Someone that can control the game, you can control the tempo, go out there and you can just rely on him, and Cade Brenner did a nice job of that. And then another big point, too, on the other side of things, it was another week, and I was really impressed with linebacker Austin Kovar, and he showed us what he's made of. He's had a couple of really good weeks of good performances, and he's consistently come out to play his best week after week. And, again, on the defense, he led the Indians with 15 tackles and 3 tackles for loss. So, again, a big factor on that Wauseon defense, but at the end of the day, just couldn't stop Dominic's just phenomenal running attack. So,
I mean, if you're getting 5 yards a carry, just like you said, give him the rock.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you got to do.
Keep going, man. See if they can stop you.
This game had to have been under 2 hours, too, I would think. He was probably out there by 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, you would think.
And that kind of makes me think, Tony, is what's the old phrase? Don't fix it if it's not broke.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
You keep handing that ball off for 5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry. Might as well keep going with it. I mean, it's working for you. Might as well stay with it. So that was a nice job, again, by Archbold pulling out that big win against a good Wauseon team.
And especially being down 12-0, to stick to running the ball.
Right. Not that's another thing.
And not panic and get into okay, we need to score some points. And it doesn't. I don't know if Dominic broke off any big runs, but it doesn't. I don't think for anything for a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
They were all under.
They were all
under 3 yards. I think.
I believe
3
so.
and 2.
Yeah, and again, kudos to Archbold and the Blue Streaks to pulling out that game. Wauseon a week ago, they had a nail-biter win against Delta, but they just couldn't get it done this week. Yeah. So if you're Wauseon, you got to go ahead and move on and start gearing towards playoffs. So that's right around the corner.
Right on.
Let's look at the next game here, and this one was a shocker, and it kind of shocked us. But we've talked about it, and we'll get into it here shortly. I'll announce it. It's Ayersville at Wayne Trace, and Wayne Trace pulled out the win, 28-26. But we've said it time and time again, playing at Wayne Trace, and AJ made that point. There's the Wayne Trace curse, and Wayne Trace is definitely better than what their record shows, and we've said that, and we said all year long, if Wayne Trace could get a little bit of offense going to their good defense, they could be something this year, and that we saw that, and essentially, I mean, that game eliminated Ayersville from a share of the GMC title because, I mean, if Edgerton went out this week and beat Antwerp, it would have gave them a shot at it, but no more. And one thing with this game, it was tied up all at 14 at halftime, which, again, this game was neck and neck, tooth and nail all the way through. And I think, like we said, too, with the offense, the Raiders had 277 passing yards and 370 total yards for the game and only had one turnover, which I feel like the turnover is the most impressive stat because we've seen time and time again Wayne Trace turn the ball over. And it's hard to win games when you turn the ball over. You got to possess that ball. You got to treat it like it's gold. There's like all the coaches and everyone always says, treat the football like it's gold. And quarterback Kyle Stoller did a really nice job. He went out there. He had those 277 passing yards, put together 3 passing touchdowns, and he only had 1 interception. So very nice performance from him. And they went out there. The offense performed and gave Wayne Trace a chance to win. So what are your guys' thoughts on this game?
Kind of a shocker.
Yeah,
that after Tinora played Wayne Trace, they won. Ayersville plays Tinora. Ayersville wins. Kind of thought Ayersville would come out and take care of business this week. I was shocked to see the score of that when you guys had texted that. I was like, wow, really? Wayne Trace ended up pulling it out, huh? But good for Wayne Trace. Like we've said that, like you mentioned, if they can just cover up some of the errors they've been making, they're a solid team. So to see them finally pull something out against a good team like Ayersville, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think like I said, we were giving updates about our game. It's just expected to see Ayersville take a lead, pull away, tied at 14 at the half. I think Ayersville scored to start the third quarter, so you thought, well, they're going to pull away. No. Wayne Trace comes back, scores, takes a lead. And it came down to conversions. Wayne Trace was able to kick the conversion, and Ayersville, I think Coach Mickey just goes for 2 all the time, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And this night, it didn't work for him. So that was the end story, I guess, where Wayne Trace made their conversions and Pilots did not. So.
Yeah, it was time to, I believe it was in the first quarter, Wayne Trace had the ball on the 10-yard line, couldn't convert. And, so, if you got the ball on Wayne Trace's 10-yard line, you're in field goal range. I mean, for most people, and, and you can't kick there, that's an opportunity. You could have put some points on the board maybe. And, but yeah, I mean, it just, like Angie kind of joked about the Wayne Trace curse, and Wayne Trace has been there. And I think one of the hot takes we had earlier a few weeks ago was about Wayne Trace shocking somebody. Well, yeah, I guess they shocked Ayersville.
Yeah, I would say so, because, I mean, none of us had Wayne Trace pick that game, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, and that just goes to show, too, how I feel like at times undervalued special teams are in Northwest Ohio, and we've seen it a lot. Even look at the Van Wert Wapakoneta game just early in the season.
Yeah, it was like block kicks.
Yeah, tons of block kicks. I feel like this year we've seen special teams needed more than we ever have as far as big field goals or just even making your simple getting a punt off, stuff like that. I mean, those sometimes are the game changers when you look at it in the overall grand scheme of things. But looking at this game too, Kyle Stoller had a very good performance, but he couldn't have done it without that O-line and his receivers. He's got Tucker Antone, Grace Price, Jude Stoller, Dylan Hildebrand, Derek Dangler. All had receptions in that game and helped contribute, and that passing offense tore Ayersville apart a little bit. Yep. You look at the flip side of things, and you look at Ayersville in that game, and the only thing that they could really get going was their running back, Owen Berner. Berner had 22 carries for 138 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, and we know firsthand after broadcasting Tinora games all season that if you're a one-dimensional team in a game, that makes you very vulnerable. I'm not saying that generally speaking Ayersville is a one-dimensional offense, but you have to establish that passing attack to keep Wayne Trace on their toes and from loading the box because just a few weeks ago, obviously we broadcasted Tinora games and we saw Wayne Trace defense, and they would put 9, 10, 11 guys in the box, and they would have guys right down at the line of scrimmage. And we've seen that even from Balding, from Tinora. But again, you got to have even if you like to run the ball, you still got to have the passing attack to keep them honest. And I think at the end of the day, when you just can't get that going and the defense can dial in and really focus on that running attack, it makes it hard to put points and win a game. So,
well, just kind of going through the play-by-play here, looks like on the last drive by Wayne Trace, they got the ball back with just right at 6 minutes left in the game and ran the clock out. That's pretty impressive to control the last 6 minutes of the game and not give the ball back to Ayersville and give them a chance. But it does look like on a 4th and 5, Ayersville jumped off sides, which gave them a first down. But yeah, they just kind of kept pounding the ball and getting the first down. Ran 6 minutes off the last 6 minutes of the game off the clock, and that's give Ayersville another shot.
That's totally demoralizing. if you know that you can possess the ball for 6 minutes at a time and there's nothing you can do to stop that's
yeah. I mean, Ayersville had timeouts. I mean, they called looks like they called 2 timeouts during the drive and just could not get off the field.
Yeah, and part of me almost wonders if this game with Ayersville, I mean, they played a really tough Antwerp team the week before, had a tough loss at home. You know, there's a lot of hype around that game. I wonder if they almost kind of just let that carry over to this game. You know, you're kind of looking past. I feel like, I'm not saying if they were or weren't, but I feel like you're in that situation, you take a loss, you're almost kind of looking past a Wayne Trace at this point just because of you look at the record, it's Wayne Trace, just Wayne Trace. Well, Wayne Trace came out and then they showed that they're still a decent ball club, and I think they showed Ayersville, and they definitely shocked all of us here. So let's look at the next game here. Ottawa Glandorf at Defiance, and Defiance ended up winning that one 22-14. And this win marks the first year Defiance has had a winning season record since 2013. And again, looking at this game, we talked about during the year that OG has been a team that they hang around and they can compete with some of the better teams in the area, but they just can't get it done at the end of the day. And OG is a well-coached team. I know they're led by head coach Ken Schreiner. They just haven't been able to get over that hump and into the win column during multiple games. And we kind of talked about it off air here that OG's got one of the tougher strength of schedules in the state, and as far as Division 5. Yep. So their schedule's no joke, but at the end of the day, you got to get wins, and that's the tough part. That's why you go out and play football. You go to play and get those wins. So you look at Defiance, and it's just amazing to see the turnaround, I feel like, of the program. It's been a long 9 years since Defiance high school players, you look at coaches and fans, have seen a winning record out of that program. I just can't imagine how awesome that is to be involved with that program at this point in time. So thoughts about this game, Ottawa Glandorf at Defiance?
Sets up a pretty good showdown for this week here to see what happens with Defiance, because they're kind of right on the cusp. If they win this week, they could end up hosting a playoff game, be pretty close. If they lose, they could be talking about them being out of the playoffs. So Defiance kind of controls their destiny here this week. So it sets up a really good showdown for week 10.
I think they play Wapakoneta too, so it's going to be it's almost a pre-playoff game, honestly, for Defiance. So. Defiance. I don't think they must win, but it would definitely help them out if they did win. But that's this game right here. Yeah, Defiance did all their scoring in the first half, and just second half control the ball enough to pull out a victory. And I'm sure Coach Cooper has probably sweated out until the last seconds too. But yeah, it's great to see Defiance finally having a program that everybody can talk about, not just in Defiance, but we talk about them every week here. So just something to be proud of for the community and even ex-players, like you said, Logan.
And too, I give so much credit to head coach Travis Cooper and his staff for getting those players to buy into him and the vision where he really wants to see Defiance football to go in the years to come. And he's just done a tremendous job over there.
Yeah, it's it's like you said, it's been a long time, and it's got to be exciting inside the school right now to, hey, look at us. We put together a winning record, and we're going to go to the playoffs, hopefully. I just kind of looking at the numbers there, it's going to be close. I mean, if they lose, it could be close whether they make it or even make it into playoffs or not.
Right now, they're 11, so they got.
Got a little bit of room to wiggle, but it depends on what some of those teams blow.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was looking at. I was like, but yeah, just happy for Defiance to get back on that, on the building of the program and getting on that positive side of things. And hopefully this is just the first year of many to come.
Yeah.
And it's not even so much just in the high school that the excitement's built. The whole community has been, getting more and more excited as the season's gone on. And now you're looking at first time in the playoffs for a long time. What is it? I don't even remember how many years it's been since they've been in
a
the
while.
playoffs.
Yeah.
So like the entire community are back behind these guys again.
So just curious,
awesome.
how much are you guys hearing that in the office? As you guys work during the day, therapy.
Been hearing quite a bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say too. I think too. Like it's just awesome to see. I think you hear fans. I'm going to the game Friday. I'm going to the game Friday. In years past, you may not have heard that as much. People would rather sit at home, and I mean that's something too. Winning brings crowds, and
right.
They're getting the fans. Like AJ said, they're backing behind their team, and that's just awesome to see.
Yeah.
And it builds more momentum. The more fans you have, the harder you play, and it just keeps building on itself. So it's awesome to see Coach Cooper getting things on track there.
And then also, as far as this game goes, Brogan Castillo, running back from Defiance, had a monster game. Again, 22 carries, 100 rushing yards, 32 receiving yards, along with a rushing touchdown and 2 receiving touchdowns. And him and Craig Nichols have both been a staple in that offense all year long. And Nichols added in another 91 rushing yards and 12 carries. And again, we've mentioned it in the past that they've got to be one of the better 1-2 punches in the area as far as running backs. And they've came out each week and they produce, and that's what you need out of those guys. And another point I wanted to make out is, too, there's a couple guys that we really haven't talked about this season for Defiance, and that would be wide receiver, defensive back Brian Phillips. He had 3 receptions for 18 yards this game and is actually leading the team in receptions and receiving yards this year. He's got 43 receptions, 485 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. And really, I mean, that's what you want out of your senior wide receiver. You want a guy that's going to go out there and he's produce, and he's going to show those younger guys on the team what it's like to play that position. And, like breaking hard out your routes, blocking downfield on run plays, running off your defensive back so other guys can get open. And that's really what you want to see out of those guys like that, too. I just wanted to mention a couple other guys here that I think that haven't got maybe as much publicity as some of the other players, and that's senior Gavin Miller, tight end defensive lineman. And I was looking at their stats too, and just reading some different articles. And for a guy that is 6'1", 186, he's definitely making some noise. He's got 37 tackles on the year and is leading the team in TFLs with 10.5. And he's got 8 sacks on the year. So,
wow.
I mean, he's not all that big of a body, being 6'1", 186 pounds, but he's definitely going out there and he's being a menace on the defensive line. So, I think too, it just goes to show that some of these guys have been in the program for a while and have just busted their behinds to make a change. And you look at the captains of Defiance, you look at Gavino Gomez, Christian Camaso, and Gavin Miller, and they go out there and give it their all for the program and on the field during Friday nights, and you can really see that.
Yep. Actually, Logan, when you were talking about Brian Phillips and everything he did, and just looking with his numbers, like the first thing that I thought about was Cole. Christian's brother Cole Camaso last year was pretty much what Brian is doing this year.
Yep.
Go out there, lead by example, give 110% on the field, and his stats are almost close as identical to what Cole had last year.
Yeah, they are.
So
that's a good comparison. Again, we can't give Defiance enough credit, and we hope to see them continue to do well and make a little playoff run.
Yep.
So let's look at the next game here. Through this one in here for the game recaps, Patrick Henry 40, and they were at Delta, and Delta had 8 points that game. So Patrick Henry came out victorious, which I looked at that score, and I was very shocked to see what we've seen out of Delta this year. And we've seen Delta compete with a lot of teams, and they almost had a win against Wauseon just a couple of weeks ago. But you look at that game, and Patrick Henry jumped out to a 27-0 halftime lead. And to be at halftime and you've almost got a running clock against a good quality opponent like Delta, that's saying a lot from the Patriots. And again, I just couldn't believe it. We were there at halftime on Tinora Rams Live, and I was looking at the scores, and Keith was announcing them. I was like, man, oh man, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I didn't think it was right at first, but you go back and you look at it, and if you had to sum up the game in 2 words, Nash Meyer, and that man went off. We haven't really talked much about him
not the last
past
few
couple
weeks,
but
right?
24-28, 86% completion percentage, 324 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 42 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns, and he even had a 2-yard touchdown reception from Gavin Jackson. That all equaling 6 touchdowns and 1 in each stat category, which is just phenomenal. So what are your guys' thoughts on this game here?
I think Patrick Henry and Coach I just But that 3-game losing streak with his Bryan, Wauseon, and Liberty Center just unleashed the tiger. I think they were just.
I would say so.
Here we go, guys. This is make or break for playoffs, and just came out with just jumped on the Delta, never looked back. So yeah, Nash Meyer, we like you said, Logan, we haven't mentioned him for a couple of weeks, but up until then, he was one of our highlighted athletes and for the award every week. But yeah, it's good to see PH back on the winning wagon there.
And maybe he was listening to our podcast and thought he had to go out and make a statement to get his name back out there.
Yeah, definitely made a splash.
He, like Keith said, I mean, they said it perfectly. I mean, PH just looked like they came out with a little bit of a chip on the shoulder and decided, hey, if we're gonna make a run here, we're gonna have to do it today. And Delta just happened to be the team that was in the way, and like you said, and then Nash Meyer just went off, basically put the team on his back and said, "Let's rock."
Yeah.
With those kind of stats, so it's good to see PH come back, get a win. Unfortunate for Delta, and Delta's still kind of hanging on by a thread to make the playoffs here. So.
And that's something, too. I mean, I know we mentioned Patrick Henry's offense, but, again, they held Delta to 8 points, and they really shut down Delta's strong rushing attack, and they held Jeremiah Wolford, running back from Delta, to 42 rushing yards and 10 carries, and he's been another guy that's been a dominant force and one of the better running backs in the area, and the Patrick Henry defense shut him down. So an excellent job over there from the defensive staff at Patrick Henry.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game here. A couple more games. Edgerton at Tinora. Tinora ended up winning that one 31-6, and this was another shocker for us. And going into that game, I was very excited to see the matchup of Edgerton's offense and the stud and quarterback Corey Everett versus Tenora's tenacious defense at full strength. And it's safe to say that Tenora's defense at full strength prevailed. And after watching that game, I tell you what, if I'm a high seed in the playoffs, I do not want to play the Tinora Rams right now, especially with what we saw out of their offense Friday night, in addition to their defense. So what are you guys' thoughts on this game here?
Well, I tell you what, it's we talked about last week, and I got a couple high fives because I was the only one on the staff here that picked the Rams. But they did exactly what they needed to do. They kept Corey Everett contained. It didn't let him run off and go crazy. And I have to agree with you 100%, Logan. With what we saw, I'm more impressed with the Rams' offense. But I mean, defense, they've been that way. You're right. When they're at full strength, they're probably one of the best in the area. But man, the offense and the change in the play calling, that they just kind of started throwing the ball around a little bit, getting out in space, letting their runners run, and Tenora's kind of multi-dimensional now, which is different for Tinora, and it looked really good last night or Friday night. So it'll be interesting to see what Tinora does, the next couple weeks here in the playoffs.
Yeah, this was probably one of those scores that was announced around the area at halftime and towards the end, and people are just, what? Yeah. But, I mean, Tinora, give the coaching staff credit. They just came out, like similar to PH, they just came out, and I don't think Edgerton really was in the game. Like from the first snap, the defense just was pressuring Everett. Really, the only meaningful drive they had was, I think, in the late third quarter.
Yeah.
And that was in the entire game. Like, Tinora just controlled the entire game, offensively and defensively.
Javen Gaines tearing it up in the middle.
Javen Gaines and Carter Gilliam again. I give that poor kid a shout out. I mean, he's been injured his previous few seasons, but last month Carter's played fantastic on defense. So, but yeah, Rams just honestly didn't give Edgerton a chance. Came out and just boom.
And I don't even think Edgerton had a first down probably till almost the second quarter, because it was just like 3 and out from Edgerton over and over.
I think they had 2 in the first half.
Yeah.
That was it.
Wow.
It was, total domination by the Rams. Unexpected, I think I would say, but at least from the average fan standpoint.
Right. And I tell you, there's a couple things that I really like that game. Definitely one, like Tony said, the passing game that Tinora was able to develop. You look at Graziani, he was able to go 4 of 6, 90 passing yards and 1 touchdown. And that's what you need. He looked more poised in the pocket. He was able to throw the ball deep a couple times. And I don't know how the one reception, I think it was it Cole Anders that came up with the reception? I was like, how in the world did he even?
In the area too.
I don't know how he made that reception, but that's where a lot of those yards came from. But it was good to see him go out there and be confident in himself, because I feel like the last few weeks we just didn't see that confidence. We saw him almost kind of rushed at times and didn't set his feet. But this last game, he's able to do that a little bit, and it's good to see. And like we talk about again, I mean, that's what Tinora needs going into the playoffs.
The play we're talking about, AJ. I know you were in Cancun enjoying yourself, but they threw the ball. Graziani threw the ball probably with 40 yards in the air.
Yeah, down the near sideline.
And Cole Anders and was it Brandon?
Braden Rostai.
Braden Rostai were kind of like in the same spot, and the ball comes down, and it looked like it hit the ground. And all of a sudden, there goes Anders for the touchdown. He just took off. It was like, how did he come up with the ball? But it was pretty awesome. It was a good play there. It
was definitely exciting. I sent you guys, one of you guys, a message. I think I was in the group chat that we have, just asking what the score was, and I saw 31-6. I'm like, wow, something changed. To see Tinora putting up 31 points against a team like Edgerton, I was like, okay, they had a change on offense a little bit there. Just obviously became multi-dimensional at least a little bit, which, like you said earlier, with I don't remember who we were talking about, but when you open up some of the options, 90 yards passing isn't like super out there compared to some of the other teams we've seen, like 300 yards. But it's enough to open up the run game. Yeah, so it's enough to open up the rest of the offense. They've got to be careful of that pass, and it allows Edwards and those guys to shine like they usually do.
I tell you, Graziani, he's like you mentioned, Logan. He's poised, and I tell you what. He just stands right, and there, and he throws the ball. And sometimes he takes a hit, sometimes he doesn't, but he doesn't seem to even care. It's like for me, I'm kind of like, and then all of a sudden he throws the ball, and you're like, oh, I thought he was going to get sacked.
Yeah. Or he just turns his back and wiggles out to the left or right and makes a play out of it, like we've seen at Paulding.
But he's quick too. He really showed off. He scrambled that one time and took off, and I think got a first down. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the last 2 games, if you took the first game he played, that basically take the second half versus Ayersville, I think, and then last week it's like 2 different kids. Like, this confidence is so much greater than what it was against. Obviously, he wasn't prepared to play against Ayersville,
right?
But just getting first team reps, you can see his confidence just go from here to. He's just a sophomore, so
yeah, and that makes me wonder. Because we talked about this. We talked about after the Liberty Center game that if they had made that switch then, because I know we all were standing there at Liberty Center when he came in for a few plays there when Gavin got his bell rung a little bit. He threw the ball, and we were all immediately I remember looking at Logan like, wow, this kid's got a cannon.
Yeah.
So, if they had made that switch then and put Eckert in the backfield or put him out there in space where he can use his athleticism, how that may have changed Tinora's season also. But you have down here, Logan, that, I want to point out that Jacob Bishop, he's been great this year, and he kicked a 41-yard field goal. And, we talked about special teams, and special teams is huge. Didn't come into play in this game as far as make or break, but, putting those points on the board sometimes when you get those drives where you just can't get the ball in the end zone and you come away with some points, that's better than we mentioned in the Ayersville game.
That was my next point. Tony just took away from my thought process, but that's like Ayersville. Like, apparently they don't have a kicker,
right?
And like Tinora, at least the coaching staff, Coach Leisher now can lean on Jacob. Anywhere, if you get the ball to the 25-yard line, you're going to have a shot at least 3 points. So as we saw at Lima, he had that 44-yarder hit the
crossbar.
Crossbar. So, I mean, it's a nice little added feature.
Tinora's been lucky with that. I mean, over the past. I mean, you go back. I mean, you go way back to the 2010 season when they had
Alex Mosier. And, I can never remember Justin. Or not Justin. I can never remember. There was somebody that came in right around your time.
Josh Camp.
Yeah, Josh Camp was when he was there.
Marcus Reeves was another one.
That's what it was.
Yeah, he booted 50-yarders.
Even Dylan last year was all GMC as a kicker. So, I mean, there's...
Tinora's been blessed
very
with kickers.
Yes.
And people don't think about that. But, man, I tell you what, when I look at that, I always think about myself as freshmen. You try to earn a way on the field. Learn how to field goal kick. I mean, if you can kick, that can come in huge in games.
Especially in some of these games where we see missed PATs. Even that right there is big enough of a deal. But getting Bishop out here kicking 41-yard field goals, like you said, it didn't come up a whole lot in this game because the game was kind of got away from Edgerton a little bit. But it gives him confidence going into the playoffs here. Right. So now he knows in himself, can believe in himself that he can kick that. The coaching staff can believe in it. So, a situation like that comes up in the playoffs, you might see him kick a field goal.
Yeah. He's got a heck of a leg.
And I know we were talking a lot about Tinora, but I do want to mention a couple things from Edgerton's side of things. I will say I was really impressed with the sheer size that those guys had up on the offensive and defensive lines, and they clogged up a lot of holes for Tinora. I mean, because there was a point in time where Tinora could not run the ball up the middle because you had some big boys up there. Yep. You had guys like Blake Flower, Caden Burkhart, and they were doing a nice job at shutting down the run up the middle. But you saw Tinora, they adapted, and that's where Brandon Edwards came in, running back for Tinora. He had 19 carries, 143 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So it was good to see him come alive and really hit that outside edge. A couple other things, too, is Joel Walkup, linebacker for Edgerton. The kid's a stud. He does a nice job, and he led the team with 13.5 tackles and was all over. And, again, Corey Everts, he's probably not – I know he's known more for his offense, but again, he does such a nice job on defense. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And during this game at Tinora, he had 9.5 tackles. But that's one thing, again. I know Corey Everts, he's usually one of the better offensive players around, but the Tinora defense, again, just held Edgerton to 120 total yards of offense, and that's impressive considering Edgerton was averaging 37 points a game and 350 yards of total offensive games. Yep. So, again, I would have thought it would have been a lot closer, and actually, like I said, I picked Edgerton too, and all of us here actually did except for Tony. So, again, I think Edgerton has a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of talent on that team and a lot of experience. So, wouldn't be surprised if they get things turned around here and they put together a pretty good scheme against Antwerp. All right, let's move on. Last game here, Fairview at Hicksville. Hicksville ended up winning that one 28-13, and this game was 13-14 at half with Hicksville leading, so it was a close one all the way through. But Fairview just couldn't keep things going in the second half. They remained scoreless, and it definitely helps when your QB plays well, which is a big reason why Hicksville came away with the win, as Brody Balzer threw for 185 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he rushed for 98 rushing yards, and he added another rushing touchdown. So very good performance out of him. A couple other key guys. You look at wide receiver Aaron Klima for Hicksville. He added 11 receptions for 113 yards and a receiving touchdown. And then for Fairview, you look at Drayden Grinnell, Dennis, and DeAndre Hastings. Both had touchdowns for the Apaches. But, again, I felt like this was an opportunity for Fairview to get their first win of the season. They just couldn't get it done. Again, Hicksville picks up their second win, and they got a tough matchup against Tinora next week. But what are your guys' thoughts on this game here?
We'll get to see the Aces firsthand this Friday night. So, yeah, Lucas Smith's one of those head coaches, has been in the game for a long time. Even though he's young, he's like he's been around forever. You kind of pull for somebody like him. Good to see Hicksville get their second win. And, yeah, we'll see the offense firsthand this Friday night over at Hicksville. But I think Brody Balzer and Aaron Klima basically switched positions coming into this season.
Yes, they did.
So it was nice to see them finally connect for a big game. But Coach McCord on the other side, I mean, they have a elementary and junior high program that's pretty strong. So, they're going to take their bumps this year, but I think in the upcoming years, they got a lot to work with. So,
yeah, Fairview's got a good 8th grade class. We played them, and they thumped us pretty good. But some big boys, they're quick, and it looks like they know how to play the game of football. So, Coach McCord, relax a little bit. You got some players coming that can help you out, I'm sure. And like Keith said, Hicksville, that just one of those years for them, and being a small school, and just have to kind of play the wave. We talked about before where you just got to wait for your athletes to come in, and they seem to come in waves when those smaller schools. So
we've talked about it with schools like Antwerp. They didn't even have a program for a year. They canceled the season, and look at them now. They're winning the conference.
Yep.
So things might look bleak right now for Fairview, but give it a couple of years, things flip-flop so much in high school.
Just 2 years ago, I think they were in the Final 8. So,
right,
I mean, things can change just like that.
Right.
For, your graduating class comes out, or goes out, then you don't have too much coming up behind it. And as we're seeing with Fairview is probably your prime example, it's just a shift in talent over like a 2-year period. Yeah. So, but as Tony said, they have a lot of talent coming up. So Coach McCord, he'll have Fairview back winning in no time.
Yeah, and so will Coach Smith. They'll both be working it out.
All right. Well, that concludes our Week 9 game recap. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers of Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tinora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on TinoraRams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Welcome back to the NWO Sports Podcast. Logan Bailey here with Keith Brown, Tony, and AJ Fairchild, and we're looking at Player of the Week from Week 9, and we'll go ahead and I'll run through some of the finalists here, and a lot of good performances this week, and we'll go ahead and have a little bit of discussion here. So let's kick it off here. Breaking the list here is Carson Dominic, running back Archbold, 32 carries, 158 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Nash Meyer, quarterback Patrick Henry, 24 of 28, 86% completion percentage, 324 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown from a quarterback. Brogan Castillo, running back Defiance, 22 carries, 100 rushing yards, 32 receiving yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 2 receiving TDs. Colton Cruz, running back Liberty Center, 5 carries, 132 rushing yards, averaging 26.4 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. Brandon Edwards, running back Tinora, 19 carries, 143 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. 1 interception on defense, so he contributed on both sides of the ball. Jace Kepler, quarterback Brian, 13 carries, 224 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He was 8 of 13 passing with 111 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, and he also contributed with an interception on defense. Brody Balzer, quarterback Hicksville, 18 of 25, 72%, 205 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He did have an interception, but 95 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Kyle Stoller, quarterback Wayne Trace, 11 of 20, 269 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he did have 1 interception, but again, helped lead a win against a good Ayersville team. Owen Berner, running back Ayersville, 22 carries, 138 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and an interception on defense. Aaron Kalima, wide receiver Hicksville, 11 receptions, 113 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. A few more guys here. Jacob Caldwell, quarterback striker, 24 of 27, good for 89% completion percentage, 300 passing yards, and 6 passing touchdowns. Mateo Villanueva, wide receiver defensive back from striker, 10 receptions, 99 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and an interception on defense. And last but not least, Reed Leachty, running back from Antwerp, 9 carries, 108 rushing yards, averaging 12 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns, and he had 4 receptions for 58 receiving yards. So who wants to kick it off for some guys that were kind of catching your eye for Player of the Week?
Me, actually, number 1 there, Carson Dominique. It's just nice to have somebody like him, kind of you're priming the pump for playoffs. 32 carries, 158 yards, 3 touchdowns. You got him. You got Cade Brenner on the other end as your quarterback. So Brandon Edwards, another one for Tinora, just getting ready for the playoffs. And he showed, hey, you can bottle us up inside, but you get me outside. And Brandon gets outside, he can just wave goodbye because he's gonna take it all the way to the house. So, but yeah, those two, Carson Dominic and Brandon Edwards, and of course Nash Meyer, stood out for me.
Kind of looking at Colton Cruz from Liberty Center. 132 yards doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you look at it, it's only on 5 carries. It's like, wow, 26.4 yards a carry. That's a game changer right there. In a close game, if you got somebody like that on your offense that can break away some of those long runs, it's going to do you well in playoffs. So it's cool to see him putting up numbers like that on only 5 carries.
For me, I liked Kyle Stoller coming out and throwing for 200 over 200 yards against Ayersville to help Wayne Trace pull out that victory. That's a big win for them. And Owen Berner on the other side of that game, rushing for 138 yards, trying to do everything he could do to help his team, and kind of a battle of two wills there. So, but like he said, Nash Meyer just tore it up.
And I looked at, too, I agree with you. Kyle Stoller was someone who kind of caught my eye again, helping to upset Ayersville in a big GMC matchup. Another guy that I thought I was pretty impressed with was Brogan Castillo, running back from Defiance. Again, he's had I feel like every single game he's always having 100 rushing yards. That's a given, and he's at least having 2 touchdowns. So, again, he contributed 1 rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns. Even another guy that broke the list this week that we haven't really talked much about was Brody Balzer, quarterback from Hicksville. He was 18 of 25, good for 72%, throwing up 205 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he also had a rushing touchdown. And that was huge to put him over and get a win against Fairview and get Hicksville's second win of the season. So, that could be not necessarily season changer because you're late in the season, but again, 2-7 sounds a lot better than 1-8.
Yeah,
so definitely adding another win to the win column is always good. So we talked off air and we talked a little bit, but a fairly quick conversation here. And we're going to go with Nash Meyer, quarterback from Patrick Henry. And again, when you go out there and you make a statement like that against like how they did against Delta, that's very deserving. Again, he was 24 of 28, 86% completion percentage. He had 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown, and 324 passing yards. And by far and away, what a performance by Nash Meyer. And it's good to see him back on this list because, again, we've talked about that Patrick Henry, Patriots, that blue-collar workman, go to work, and that's just what he did this game. He went to work, and Delta couldn't stop him. So, Player of the Week for NWO Sports Week 9 is Nash Meyer, quarterback from Patrick Henry. So, again, congratulations to him, and congrats to all these other finalists that made the list. And, again, another week. And if you didn't make the list, go ahead, keep going out there and doing your best. We'll give you that shout-out, and we love to see the performances in the area.
Definitely.
Also, the Player of the Week will receive a plaque sponsored by Bat and Stevens Body Shop at the end of the season. So we'll be getting those around here shortly, and we'll get those out to those players. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next section here, Power Rankings for Week 10. And I'll go ahead, and like we always do, I'll break down this week's Power Rankings, and the guys will go ahead and comment on it and see what they think. So let's start here. Number 27, Fairview. Number 26, Hilltop. Number 25, Paulding. Number 24, Hicksville. Number 23, Swanton. Number 22, Montpelier. Number 21, Evergreen. And number 20, Ottawa Glandorf. So thoughts on this group here?
Not much to say there. I mean, just a bunch of teams that are struggling through the season. And, the one team in there that we talk about is Evergreen. And I was looking at them earlier today just because we were doing our, getting our picks ready for this week. And I just looked at the schedule, man, and just – they got into the NWAL schedule and it just burned. I mean, it was a buzzsaw, and they just haven't got it back together yet.
For me, yeah, it's pretty accurate for that bottom tier. Montpelier, I think Hilltop in the season this year. So, and pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think it's spot on.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at the next few teams here. Number 19, Crestview. Number 18, Lipsick. Number 17, Napoleon. Number 16, North Central. Number 15, Wayne Trace. So thoughts on this section here?
I'll tell you what, for me, Crestview and Lipsick are the 2 teams that are surprising me that they're down there. We really thought, I think we all thought they would, should be a lot higher. They should be doing a lot better than what they are. And I think it's kind of surprised us both that where they're at. But, I mean, I think they're there deservedly, but
I think we talked too, and Keith, I think, mentioned, wasn't Crestview 4-0 to start the season?
Yeah, I believe they were, yes.
So, I mean, that's something too. I mean, it's been a tale of 2 halves of the season for Crestview, and we know that they can go out and win games. It's just they haven't been able to get the job done the last few weeks. Keith and AJ, got any comments further on this section here?
Nope, just quickly looking, Crestview was 3-0 to start the season, and they ended up winning against Spencerville 2 weeks ago. So they had a streak of 4 losses in a row there. Kind of like, what happened? But it happens in football. So
it's pretty As Tony said, at Crestview and Lipstick, we probably expect a little more out of them than what we see. But yeah, pretty. And North Central, very surprising. Slowly moved up and just nipping at that top 15.
Yep. And let's look at the next section here. Number 15, Wayne Trace. Number 14, Eden. Number 13, Edgerton. Number 12, Delta. Number 11, Bryan. So we'll look at this group here.
Wayne Trace took a big jump up, beating Ayersville. That was a huge win for them, and then I think that's a good jump up for them. Then you see Edgerton on the other way sliding backwards, with the 2 losses now. So,
and on the flip side of that, Tinora making a huge leap as well, popping back up.
Yep.
And they took a bit of a fall after a couple weeks ago, and now they're sliding back up.
Yep.
Keith, any comments?
Nope, pretty accurate. I like it.
All right, let's look at the top 10 here. Number 10, Tinora. Number 9, Patrick Henry. Number 8, Wauseon. Number 7, Ayersville. Number 6, Columbus Grove. So thoughts here?
No, I think that's pretty close. Could go about any way.
Yeah, as we talked about earlier, like Tenora's right there. Or, boy, if you draw them in the playoffs, you're probably thinking, your coaches, you just kind of turn your back and roll your eyes like, here we go.
Yeah.
But Tenora's playing, as the last couple of weeks, some of the best ball in the area and could move up a spot or 2 next week. But, yeah, pretty accurately ranked there. And Ayersville got a rebound and, kind of get primed for the playoffs.
All right, let's look at the top 5. Number 5, Defiance. Number 4, Archbold. Number 3, Antwerp. Number 2, Van Wert. And number 1, Liberty Center.
I think Liberty Center deserves it. That's pretty obvious. I think Liberty Center, they're going to have a heck of a playoff run here coming up. They're coming out of that region. Anybody that comes out of that region is bound for state. So I don't want to jinx anybody, but Liberty Center's got a team that is just unstoppable.
Yep.
So them being number 1 is awesome. But the thing that's even cooler to me is seeing Defiance in the top 5. Having them up there that's awesome. Never would have expected that.
Yeah, like where they started at and where they are now is good, opposite end of the spectrum. So, yeah, it's good to see Coach Cooper and the Dogs in the top 5.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints. See how it all shakes out here in the next couple weeks.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back with a couple of good sections for you guys watching and listening. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're going to go ahead and we'll start with our call-in section here. And boy, do we have a treat for you today. We'll be talking to head coach of the Antwerp Archers and Jason Hale. And Coach, first I want to congratulate you and your team on winning Antwerp's first ever football GMC title in school history. And this has to be a long time coming, and I'm glad to see you and your team win it outright.
Yeah, thanks. It has been a long time coming. Obviously, there have been some really good teams before us in the early 2000s. That a lot of my coaches have been a part of. A lot of my assistant coaches were part of those teams, and they came really close. But for us to get over the hump finally and do it the way we did it's just been awesome to see. And I'm so excited for our kids. So it's been great, man.
Yeah, and that's like you said, that's got to be awesome for you guys and the whole community. I have to ask, what does it feel like to take a program from the ground up to the point where there wasn't even a varsity team in 2015 to now winning the first conference title in school history? I would think that has to feel pretty good at this point.
Oh, absolutely. But I think the big thing is that, we had a great plan in place from our athletic director, Drew Altimus, and our administration. We had a plan in place, and luckily the GMC was supportive of us taking a year off, playing that JV, and then coming back. Because we knew we had a plan in place. We knew we could get to this group and have great numbers and continue to build this thing. So we had a great plan, and it worked out very well for us.
Now, another thing is, too, I feel like this year is just a little bit different than other seasons. You guys won the GMC outright, and I know you guys have had a successful season last year, but it just seems like this year's different. And what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, I think obviously we had a great year last year. What people maybe don't realize a lot of the time is we lost 14 seniors.
Wow,
and probably nine of those guys were key contributors. We lost 3 All-State guys off the team from last year, so there was some uncertainty coming back this year. We had to have guys step up and be ready to play. And it started in summer workouts, and our guys continue to build each week. And so we had guys step up and make plays. I think that's something that people forget a lot of times. We were senior heavy last year. And we had guys step up currently right now and making big plays and just leading us. So that's what I'm most proud of. We had guys step up and become leaders of our program and continue building this thing in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Like you said, if you can graduate that many seniors and you can get guys to step up and replace, and that's how you build those great programs. And we've really seen it out of you guys the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously it starts with, success breeds success. When you're having success, guys want to come be part of the team. And then they learn the game, and slowly build and build. We got key contributors from, our 2 seniors this year, our big junior class, and a lot of our sophomores are contributing, and a couple freshmen. So, it's mixing in well, and it's been great to see this year.
Next question I have for you is, what is it like to coach some of these great athletes? You look at like Carson Altmus, Reed Leachty, Landon Brewer, Sears Gale, Parker Moore. The list goes on and on. What's it like to coach some of these kids on the Antwerp Archers?
Oh, man, it's a blast. Obviously being offensive coordinator, I feel like I got a lot of weapons, obviously, at my disposal. So, we can, we get one guy the ball and then get another guy the ball. And I think the biggest thing for me is I'm just excited because all our guys get excited when somebody else makes a play. When Landon makes a play, or when Reed makes a play, or Cam makes a play, or Parker makes a play, they all get excited for each other. They all block well for each other, and so they want everybody to be successful. And that's the sign of a good team. They're not just out for themselves. They're out for our whole team to be better. And those guys do that consistently with our skill positions, obviously with Carson and Reed, leading the way there, and Landon. But, our guys do a great job of blocking for each other, cheering each other on, and being the great teammates.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the money. And we got a chance to witness you guys play against Tinora. Obviously, we cover some Tinora games. And just watching your kids go out there, and you could tell they're having fun at each and every play. And just I think that sets you guys apart from a lot of different teams. I mean, they're out there celebrating with each other, and they're just going out there and having fun. And that's really what I think what a good quality to have in good teams like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from these guys, They've played a lot of football together, man. Back in the backyard when they were little, to minis, when we started this thing in minis with them, and then, to junior high to high school. So it's a constant process where they've been around each other, they trust each other, they know each other, and it's been a great season. And, we've had great support from our community, and we've been thankful. And I'm just glad that I get to be around these amazing young guys and young athletes every day. And we get better each day, and they show up and put the work in, and it's paying off. And we're going to do that this week.
Talking to the guys here, you guys got any questions for head coach of the Archers and Jason Hale?
I got a couple. I mean, this is Tony Fairchild, and I just got a question for you. Been over there last year and saw your guys' you guys have been updating the facilities over there, and you got a new press box, and you guys flip-flopped the home site from what it used to be years ago. And you make all of us away people stare into the sun now instead of you guys. But, your front gate looks beautiful as you walk into the facility. And, did you guys fundraise for that? Or?
Yeah, I think our athletic department, and with help of our boosters and great support from the school, had a great plan in place, and our maintenance staff does a great job of taking care of our facility. Andrew Messon's our head custodian. Him and Lim Butte do a great job of taking care of our field. We have a parents club that paints the field and does a great job of that. So, we take pride in that. And obviously when we get to play at home, it's a great thing to be. And obviously not looking into the sun anymore is obviously a big deal for us. So, that might have had a little swing and, us pushing the sides, but no, it's an awesome place to play, and it's just great. The support we get from the community, the support we get from our athletic department and administration is great.
Good. And have you guys done upgrades to other facilities like your weight room and that kind of stuff? I mean, we've seen that at other facilities like at Liberty Center, and it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Well, obviously, we updated the baseball field. I think probably 5-6 years ago. So that's all together now. We still have our old baseball field. Our weight room is pretty top notch. We got great space in there. Locker rooms on each side. So we have great facilities. I really believe that, and it just makes it easy to show up and come to work, and our kids enjoy being there and taking full advantage of every aspect of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. As you start doing that, you're showing some pride in your facilities and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
It kind of builds with the students as well.
Absolutely. You know, we've had great support from our students, fans as well. And, you know, we always do like a fan walk, a fan tunnel before the game when we come out, and to see the numbers keep growing each week for that's awesome to see. And we're excited to do it for those guys as well.
That's awesome. Hey, Coach Hale, thanks for coming on. Boy, I had a whole list here for you. I could keep you on for half an hour with just my questions. First one I had for you, when that fourth down pass versus Tinora hit the ground, did you just have a big sigh of relief?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, that obviously our guys made a good play, but, you know, Tinora was a great opponent, and we were able to get a stop there. But, you know, that was a hard fought game. And, you know, we faced some adversity there in the second half, and our guys responded well, and we were able to get the victory. So it was a big sigh of relief, and I'm glad we made a play. Awesome.
And I'm sure you don't lose much sleep knowing you only graduate 2 seniors this season. I mean, that's you're building a heck of a program, and to look at the roster, you just have 2 seniors, Kendrick Robertson, I think Parker Moore. That's your only 2 seniors?
Yep,
wow.
That's it. Yep. So, you know, those guys have done a great job for us being seniors. Obviously, we got a big junior class, a big sophomore class. You know, we've had 9 freshmen come out this year, and right now our 7th and 8th grade team, our junior high team, was 6-2-1. So, you know, they had a good season, just finished up yesterday. So, you know, we had good numbers there. Started, I think, with like 25. So I think we're maybe going to have, you know, 10 to 12 8th graders come out, you know, going into the freshmen. So we can continue to build this thing, and that's the way you build success, man. It's just kids showing up, putting the work in, you know, and it takes a lot of hard work, and our guys know that, and they showed up and started putting that work back in June. And it's paid off, and we're going to need to continue to work hard as we start down, you know, finish up GMC play and head down the tournament trail.
Oh, that's fantastic. Last one for me is, what's it like to have some of your bigger athletes as far as, I guess, basketball wise? I mean, last few years you had Jagger Landers and you have Landon Brewer. That has to, like you said, you have all these young athletes coming up, junior high and freshmen. They probably just want to join in. If you see, like, hey, Jagger, you know, he's playing at Findlay now, but he wants to go out and play football, so I want to go play football too. So seeing these kids like this out there has to help.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm a big believer, and as many of our coaches are, is multi-sport athletes. You know, you need those guys to be versatile and play multiple sports, you know, with that. And, you know, because, you know, and I've talked about it all year, you know, those guys went on that basketball run last year. Those guys went on that baseball run. We've had success in track and field. Those guys understands what it takes in those big moments. You know, when you go on a tournament run like we did going to state, you know, and then obviously last year I win versus PH in the playoffs. And so when you go through those games and those moments, you understand what it takes to win and have success. And that's only continued to build our program this year. And those guys understand what it takes, and they know, you know, they've done a really good job with the moment not being too big and staying focused. And we attack every game, you know, like it's the next one because it's the most important one. So they've done a great job, and obviously those guys playing multiple sports, and not only helps me in football, you know, it helps in basketball, it helps in baseball, and we have great kids that are able to do
that. This is AJ Fairchild here, talking about the great facilities you guys have and how great it is to walk into that stadium every day and play there. You guys are heading over to Edgerton this week here, and we all know firsthand that is not a very welcoming place to incoming teams. So what's your guys' outlook for this week?
Yeah, you know, obviously Edgerton's a very good team. They got a great quarterback, great athletic quarterback. They're big and physical up front. So, you know, defensively, we're going to play fundamental football. You know, you got to know where number 4, their quarterback is, obviously. Try to stop him, but, you know, they got a lot of other weapons as well. So, you know, we know we're going to get tested because they're playing for a lot as well for seeding. So it's going to be a battle. You know, obviously going into Edgerton, that's a tough place to play. You know, going down in the valley, you know, they have great support there. So we got to be focused, and we got to become road warriors just like we have been all year, and we got to get it done and be ready to go.
Yeah, Coach, this is Logan again. One more question here. We won't keep you too much longer, but you guys have a chance at going 10-0 and hosting another home playoff game in Region 26, Division 7. And I'm sure the community of Antwerp has to be ecstatic about that again. And what does that mean to you guys to have that opportunity to finish the regular season undefeated and also host a home playoff game?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you know, for us to go 10-0, the biggest thing is the next game is the biggest one. You know, it's another chance for us to go 1-0 this week, and that's what we've been talking about all week. So obviously we get that. You know, we're able to make some more history there and go 10-0. And then obviously that plays a big deal because you want to be one of those top 4 seeds, because those top 4 seeds obviously get 2 home playoff games if you're fortunate enough to win. So, we can still we still got a lot to play for, even though we're 9-0. So that I don't think that happens a lot of times. Obviously you go 9-0. Sometimes you don't have much to play for. Your season's already set. But with our region, pretty much everybody in our region plays each other this week. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling, a lot of moving around, and we need this game to get us ready for the playoffs versus a great opponent in Edgerton. And for us to go 10-0 would be an awesome feeling, and I would just be excited for our guys, to experience that. And then we got to turn the page, come Saturday and get ready to go for the playoffs. And we got to try to be in that top 4 spot, because if you're able to host 2 home games, man, that's a huge advantage, obviously, because
it is.
Teams got to travel up here to our place. We got a great crowd. We got the support. Our guys stay in that routine of being at home, man, and there's nothing like playing at home. Playoff football, it just gets you jacked up and ready to play, and there's nothing special than playing playoff football at home. So we're still got a lot to play for, and that's what we're going to work for.
That's awesome, Coach. Well, that's all we got here from NWO Sports. I just want to thank you again for coming on and appreciate talking to you. I mean, you're doing big things over there, and just want to wish you good luck for the rest of the season and going into playoffs. We'll be rooting for you here, and again, keep up the good work, and we'll be cheering you on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach Hale.
Thank you.
Take care, Coach. All right, we'll go ahead. We'll take a short little break here, and we'll be right back with our next call-in.
Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're here for call number 2 today, and we're going to be talking to linebacker out of Eden High School, Cohen Halbert, and he is currently one of the leaders in the area for tackles right now. So let's go ahead, Cohen, and let's start off with this Friday. You guys have a big game against Ottawa Hills, who is 7-1, and it's a battle for a TAC championship, and you guys will need it probably to bump you into playoffs and help that out. What's it going to take Friday to get a win?
We all have been working hard all week to stay focused, really watching film and working hard in practice, implementing new things, and just finding every little way we can to win and just stay focused.
Now, the next question I have for you, now you're one of the top in the area for tackles, and Eden has quite a few good linebackers over the years, and most recently with Gannon Ripke. What does it mean to play linebacker at Eden with a rich history over the last few years of quality players, especially at the linebacker position?
It means a lot, just knowing I can keep that tradition going and carrying on, especially for someone last year like Gannon, who I became pretty good friends with, and he really taught me a lot about the linebacker position and how to play it. So it's a good feeling.
So question for you is, what do you think allows you to get so many tackles per game?
Well, I try to watch a lot of film, and I pick up on things that offenses do really well, I think. And my D linemen and my outside linebackers especially take up a lot of blocks, stay in their lanes, and just allow me to make plays all over the field. So I don't think I'd be able to do it without those guys.
Talking to the guys here, you guys have any questions for Cohen or on the Eden high school football team?
A couple I had, Cohen, was what's it like to play for, like, coach, I guess, for us around here, coaching legend Bob Owen. What's that like? More of an offensive coach, obviously, you're more a defensive player, but what's it like to play for Coach Owen?
He's a character. He likes, but when it's time to get down to business, he gets everybody focused, and he does a really good job of teaching us things and showing us what to do. And he has really, truly great knowledge for the game, and he knows what he's doing, and we all trust him. So it's good time.
Yeah, he's been around these parts forever. Second one I had, even though it's just probably an individual award, what would it mean to you to lead the area in tackles, which seems like you had a pretty good lead heading into Week 10 coming up? Obviously, you're more of a team player, but individual stat, would that mean something to you to, as such a young player, just a sophomore, to come out in leading the area in tackles?
It's pretty cool. I believe that without the guys around me, obviously I wouldn't be able to do it, like I said earlier. But I put in work, and I've done a lot to put myself in this position. So it's a good feeling, and it means a lot to know that I'm up there and those other guys around me have a lot of tackles too.
Awesome.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I got, you guys are, we've been watching Eden throughout the season, just throwing up points after points after points on the offensive side. And then also you guys have played some teams that have thrown up a lot of points the other side. I mean, I'm just looking at one of the games of St. Paul threw up 60 on you guys. How do you guys bounce back from giving up 60 points and then come back and you shut out the team next week? So,
St. Paul obviously was a really good team that we played, and they had a lot of good running backs, and they obviously are a full T type team. So we got a lot of physical action there, a lot of contact, more than we'd ever gotten all year. And we didn't hang our heads after that game. We knew we put up a fight and we battled, and it really just gave us that hard experience of really getting in there and just being a warrior in the game and what it knows or what it feels like to play hard.
Yeah, we talked about that game. You guys, there was a ton of yards and stuff in that game, and you guys have had a pretty tough schedule. You played Edgerton to start off the season, then you played Antwerp, and so you guys have taken some knocks. But taking that loss to St. Paul, getting ready for the playoffs, I think that's going to be a good thing for you guys if you guys can just knock off Ottawa Hills.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Last question I had for you here, Cohen. Now your brother Cassius is playing at Tiffin University. What has that been like to have an older brother to look up to that has played football and that has had some success over the last couple of years, and you even got a chance to play with him last season? What has that been like?
It was great. My whole life, he's been kind of a mentor to me, teaching me things, always pushing me to work hard. And, he's my big brother, so he beats up on me a little bit, but it's always making me tougher and making me a better player. And playing with him last year was a great feeling. I know when the season ended, we took that a little roughly, not getting to play with each other again, but it was a good time, and I really appreciated it.
All right, Cohen. Well, I think that's all we got for you. But I just want to say thanks again for coming on, and I want to wish you good luck for this upcoming Friday's game. It's a big one for you guys, and good luck, and hopefully you guys get into playoffs.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, Cohen.
You too.
All right. Well, that concludes our call-ins here. We'll go ahead. We'll move on. We only got one hot take this week because we're going to do a little bit of playoff talk later, but question for you guys here, and I put a poll on Twitter, which I said it's already got over 1,000 votes on this. So people are very passionate about Defensive Player of the Year for NWO Sports. But the question is, who is your Defensive Player of the Year with 1 week left to go in the regular season? And the category I had, and I know there's probably some other kids that can make the list, but these are some that came to mind right away. Joel Walkup, linebacker Edgerton, Tad Cook, linebacker Columbus Grove, Owen Box, defensive line, Liberty Center. Cohen Halbert, linebacker, Eden. Austin Kovar, linebacker, Wauseon. Reed Leachty, linebacker, Antwerp. Holden Barnes, linebacker, Delta. And Ezra Sin, linebacker from Wayne Trace. So what are your guys' thoughts on Player of the Year? Or if you guys had anyone else?
I guess I'm going to ask a question before I even get involved in trying to pick who's – how many of these guys are seniors?
That's a very good question.
I mean, I'm looking. Walkup is a sophomore, right?
Yep.
And we just talked to Cohen Halbert. He's a sophomore, also, correct?
Yes. Yep. I believe Tad and Owen are both seniors. Austin Kovar might be a senior.
At least he's a junior.
At least he's a junior.
I mean, and I'm not sure about Sin from Wayne Trace. It just amazes me. We got a list of Defensive Player of the Year, and you got a bunch of underclassmen, and not only underclassmen, but you got sophomores. And you got people that may not be Defensive Player of the Year kind of caliber people yet, but we talked about all three of the linebackers from Tinora are all really good defensive players, and they're all juniors. So, when you start talking about the defense around the area, you're looking at a bunch of younger players at this point.
Sin's a senior for Wayne Trace.
Okay.
I think when I look at this list, and I've said this at the beginning of the season, that Columbus Grove probably has one of the best duos at linebacker, and A.J. Schaefer and Tad Cook. And one thing with him is I just saw that he has now surpassed the career tackle record at Columbus Grove with 360. Wow. And you look at that, and that is just phenomenal. I mean, to have a career like that, and we've heard his name a lot, but again, that's pretty impressive, especially coming from a program like Columbus Grove that, I mean, it seems like every year they have a great football program year after year after year. And for him to break that record and continue, I mean, he's got a chance to continue to bump that up even more. And I know tackles aren't everything, but again, you look at it, and he's just a kid that goes out there each and every game, and he is all over the field. And I've seen some of his highlights from his huddle and whatnot, and he makes plays out there. And that's one thing I really like about him.
Yeah, I just, linebacker position, I played it myself in high school. I know AJ did as well. As Cohen mentioned in the call, you really rely on the guys up front to do their job. If they're doing their job, then you can do your job. And depending on which position you're playing and how your defense is set up, you get to kind of just roam. You may not have a responsibility necessarily, depending on the defensive scheme. You might be kind of a monster back, which is what I played a little bit. So you get to fly all over the field, like Cohen was saying, and but you really got to rely on the guys up front to do that. And it's sometimes you can build up a bunch of tackles quick.
And go ahead, AJ.
Kind of like why I like Owen Box for their defensive player, just because he is a D lineman. So to see a D lineman, he's the only one on this list. It's on the line, and sometimes it's hard to get a lot of tackles on the defensive line because you're the one being blocked up front. The linebackers are the ones that are back a little bit, so they're a little easier to maneuver and get around. So to see Owen Box on this list is pretty cool.
And I know, AJ, adding on to Owen Box, you kind of made that statement. I remember that you said he is a good defensive player, but his stats may not always be in the headlines because he's always getting doubled and triple teamed.
Yes.
And we've seen that throughout a couple games. And actually, he's been a fan favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. And someone commented that Liberty Center as a team, I thought this was pretty impressive, has only allowed 430 rushing yards on the year. That's 47.7 yards per game. And they've only allowed 47 points on the year. That's 5.2 points per game through 9 games. And like this person said here, it's a team effort, but Box is still the anchor on that defensive line and defensive front. So yeah. I know he's another one a lot of people like.
Yeah, AJ talked about him earlier in the season, and still, it's nice to see his name on the list.
There's nothing way to stir up good following as Logan did. I was just reading some of the comments from his poll, and it's if you want to get some followers, nothing does it better than a poll.
Yeah.
I assure you.
And I think it's awesome too because it gets these kids' names out there.
It's great.
And truly, because obviously it's hard for defense because sometimes defensive stats are harder to get at times.
Yeah.
And two, I feel like there's that factor on defense where even though the stats may not be there, you're still a playmaker. And like we kind of mentioned with Owen Box, yeah, his stats may not look as good, but I mean, you see him out there and he's just a menace and he's taking up 2-3 blocks, which are allowing for other guys to make plays. That's a huge factor. And that's why I wanted to hear from fans and people to see what their thoughts were and to get a little bit of better idea of who's their favorite. So.
Yeah, as Tony said, you look at this list, like you see a couple of these sophomores on here, and it's just, wow, these kids are only going to get better. But like in the more serious content, we saw a couple of these kids play. Excuse me. But firsthand, I guess we told the story earlier in the season, but our first game was at Liberty Center. We got to go down on the sidelines for a little bit. Mark gave us a tour and everything. As we're coming back out, Liberty Center's defensive line was warming up as we walked out, and we stood there for probably 10 minutes, and you're like looking at some of these kids, and you're like, my God, it's Owen Box. So me, the mind's turning, and like Logan was all conference offensive lineman. So I'm like looking at Logan, and I'm looking here at Owen Box. I'm like, my God, this kid is so big.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, Owen Box is just a beast out there. So. But yeah, the rest of the kids on this list, nothing against them, but yeah, Box is just like, as Logan said, valid point. You're getting double and triple teamed at times. So you're not going to put up the stats as you would, as a sophomore or even a junior, but just because your defense coordinator that's your game plan is what I'm going to do about Box. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have to take care of him or else he's going to be a pain in your butt the whole game.
As we saw firsthand versus the Rams. So.
And we even got to see a couple of these other kids like Reed Leachty and Ezra Sin and Joel Walkup playing against Tinora, and they were all very good as well. Yep. But even Austin Kovar, linebacker from Wauseon, but one that really stood out of all those kids was Reed Leachty, and I just felt like his effort on defense was contagious, and he was all over the field making tackles, and he did a really nice job. That's one thing too that doesn't necessarily always show up in the stat column, is just doing your job and doing exactly what you're coached to do. There's oftentimes, especially in high school, kids want to just go out and do whatever they want because they think they know more than the coach, or just kind of get a big head. I feel like it's that time in their life where they kind of think they know more than some of their coaches. But he's one that did a very excellent job, and he kind of stood out to me as well. So I really liked Reed Leachty from Antwerp.
You mentioned him, Logan. I remember talking about him during the Antwerp game. He was always around the football. We teach that. We try to tell the kids good things happen if you're around the football. Yep. If a ball squirts out or a ball gets tipped, if you're trying to get to the football, good things happen. And it seemed like Reed was always kind of around if he wasn't making the tackle, he was around the pile. Yep. So it's something we always try to teach our kids is try to get your butt to the football and find a way to make things happen.
Yeah, and Reed's not around those 3-sport kids too. Like he doesn't say, "Hey, I'm just going to play basketball or baseball or football." Like he does everything. He does it well, quite honestly. So.
And one more name on this list that kind of stood out was Holden Barnes, linebacker from Delta. And I was looking at his stats. Not only does he have the tackles, he has got 9 sacks on the year too. Which if you can put pressure on the quarterback at the linebacker position, that's very good for the Delta defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, again, all these guys are very good, and I'll be curious to see who we end up deciding for Defensive Player of the Year. There's a lot of good players out there.
So let me ask, what do we look for? Is it number of tackles? Is it number of sacks? Tackles for loss? I mean, what's the criteria?
Yeah.
Or do we have a criteria where we just go, we'll pick this guy?
It's so hard for defense just because defense there's so much that goes into it. I know we had a hot take earlier in the season when somebody said that so-and-so was the best defensive player or whatever. To me, it's who on that defense, the player that makes the biggest impact, not necessarily stat-wise, but who is that player that the offensive side has to key on. They cannot let him tear things up. To me, that's what makes the most sense for a defensive player of the year is who can you not go without? Who can the other team not just ignore?
I like that.
I like that point a lot because I feel like you hear that the it factor and like I feel like if you're the guy, quote unquote, on that defense, I mean that in itself, like you know when you play against teams like even these guys on that list that you have to scheme around these guys because they are so talented and they're disruptive on defense. I feel like that's just another component you have to look into something for Defensive Player of the Year as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like whose name is always on the opponent's scouting report coming into the week. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the guy on your scout team that's playing, number 26? You make sure you go in. This guy's playing. He's him. So.
Yeah, again, we'll continue to take some feedback from fans and players as well. But again, I feel like defense is just a little trickier to decide on.
Right. So stats aren't quite 100%. I mean, coaches try, but or spotters, one or the other, but they're not quite as accurate as offensive stats. But I guess visually, I mean, you kind of can figure it out yourself, really.
Right. All right, let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next section here. We'll go ahead. We're going to move into some playoff talk here, so no more hot takes, but we're going to go ahead and briefly discuss how some of the playoffs in each division and region are kind of playing out, especially with Week 10 making or breaking on a lot of teams. So this will kind of be open form. We're not really too scripted, but we'll have a little discussion. Honestly, we could talk all day on this, but we're not. We'll touch a little bit here and there, but we'll go through each division. So,
I'm sorry, Logan.
No, go ahead.
I mean, we don't really have anybody around here, Division 1 or 2. Do we?
No, I think the biggest division is Division 3.
And that's Defiance, right?
Yeah,
Defiance and Salina, I guess, is in there.
So let's go ahead. We'll start Division 7, Region 26 looking here. And a couple of resources I'll announce. We always like to use Joe Itel. He does a great job. And a recent resource, he's been kind of away for a little bit, but Drew Pastor's Ohio Fantastic 50 does an excellent job. He's a math professor from the College of Worcester, I believe. But this man, literally, I don't know how he does all this. He's got all these statistics that he takes in and does his own rankings and whatnot, but he predicts so many games that are correct throughout the year. I think a couple weeks ago he predicted like 80+% of all the games in the state of Ohio correctly, and they were within like a touchdown scoring margin too. So those are the two resources we like to use a lot, and I highly suggest checking them out. Both are excellent to use, but we'll be using them to talk about some of these playoff scenarios. So looking at Division 7, Region 26 again, teams that we cover, we'll be talking about all those. Montpelier and Hilltop are both eliminated at this point, according to Joe Itel. So looking at this, we got a couple teams still available in the hunt right now. Antwerp is 3, Ayersville is 5. Looking down the list, Edgerton is 10, North Central is 12, and Eden is 15. Crestview is 17, and Lipsick is 20. So do you guys have any comments on this region here?
No, I mean Antwerp. When we talked to Coach Hale a little bit ago, that they're clinched. They're in the top 8. They're in. But like he said, they still have something to play for, because if you stay in the top 4 and if you win, then you host 2 playoff games. So there's obviously something there that's big to play for. So, Ayersville, I mean, they're in. Edgerton has clinched. They're in. Eden, as we talked a little bit ago, they're kind of they got to win to get in. So,
kind of looking at the list of teams that are, solid teams in this list here, Antwerp has a pretty good shot at coming out of this region. There's a lot of the teams that are in the top 16 are teams they've already played or have matched up against teams they've played. Like Lima Central Catholic, they haven't played, but Tinora is that kind of the common enemy there, and Antwerp beat Tinora beat Lima Central Catholic. So a lot of these teams kind of overlap a little bit, and I think Antwerp has a good shot at coming out of the region.
To me, I guess what as Coach Hale, that was a fantastic interview. Kind of love that guy. I've heard 3 or 4 interviews with him. I mean, you could talk to that guy all day long. Somebody you'd really want to play for, as a kid in high school or even junior high coming up as a freshman. So, great recruiting tool just to listen to Coach Hale interviews.
It is. Honestly, it really is.
Seriously. But like you see, I mean, you look at the computer points, then you have your state rankings, where I think Antwerp, the last official poll, was like 2nd in the state. Then you look at the computer polls, and then they're 3rd in the region. Sometimes you just wonder, like, how does that stuff work? But once you actually look into the formula and stuff, you got to have like a MIT degree to figure all that out. You can try it. You can kind of add it up in your head a little bit, but give yourself a headache trying to figure it all out. But your 1st and 2nd tier points. But there's a couple must wins here. Eden, like we said, talked earlier, Crestview, they're on the outside looking in right now, and like talked about Lipsick, they need like everything they got to win number 1, and then kind of have a miracle finish here and have everybody lose ahead of them. But it's going to be an interesting region moving forward.
North Central is another one I just looked at there. They're ranked 12th, and if they lose, they could end up on the outside. We talked about them making the playoffs, and if they would happen to lose again, they could end up outside the top 16.
And that's a close race there, really.
Yeah. A lot of teams are real close.
Something I like on Drew Pastor's Fantastic 50, he actually gives a breakdown of percentages of who the most likely first-round opponent is. And I'm looking at this, and right now for Antwerp, with a win against Edgerton, 28% chance of playing Eden first round.
Oh, wow.
So
it's a rematch.
Yeah.
Right away.
So that'd be an interesting first-round matchup right away. So that'd be pretty cool to see. Again, you can go on his website and you can check out a lot of likely first round opponents.
You could spend more time on that website than talking to Coach Hale. Honestly, I did a Sunday. I just kept clicking and clicking and clicking, and he has anything and everything you want to know on there.
It's like you just keep going down into a hole. Like you keep looking, I want to check out this team and see, what are the percentages that this team plays here with a win? What are the percentages that they play this team with a loss? Like it's all broken down. If you love statistics and you love math, and even if you love football, it's such a great resource to look at.
It's amazing.
I'm just looking at it. He's got North Central picked to finish 13. So it'll be interesting. He's got Antwerp finishing 2nd in the region. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes out.
And another prediction with Ayersville, most likely first round opponent with a win. You'll never guess who that is. They'll be facing none other than Edgerton. Oh, how about that for a first round playoff? That would be pretty cool.
That would be a great game to watch.
He's given them a 37% chance to play Edgerton first round with a win with that Ayersville gets this week. So that would be pretty interesting to see.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's always tough to beat a team twice, and I mean, as we saw last year with Liberty Center and Archbold, I mean, that was 3 times?
Yeah, I think so. So, and I think there's still even a possibility that eventually somewhere down the line, Liberty Center and Archbold could play again because they're in the same division, the same region.
Are.
So, anyways, that's a breakdown of Division 7, Region 26. We'll go ahead. We'll move on down. Let's look at Division 6, Region 22. Hicksville, Paulding, Fairview have been eliminated according to Joe Eitel. Again, just kind of looking at the breakdown of the region here. Columbus Grove sits number 5. Trying to see who else. Patrick Henry sits at number 13. Wayne Trace at 15. And those are the only teams in our coverage area. Oh, also, Evergreen has been mathematically eliminated according to Joe Eitel as well.
Yeah, Wayne Trace looks like they're going to have a win to get in.
Yeah, right now, Wayne Trace is kind of looking on the outside in, and it might take a lot. And even with a win, they need to win this week to try to propel them. And that might be a decent matchup against Paulding. Yeah. And we saw Paulding, they can go out and compete. But again, there's a lot of teams actually out of this region in Division 6 that have bumped up to Division 5 this year. So not saying that this region is necessarily super easy, but it's definitely, I feel like, down from what it was a year ago. So what are you guys' thoughts on Division 6, Region 22?
Yeah, other like, I guess looking at the win and then, like you said, Wayne Trace's, even if the loss, they looks like they could sneak in. But yeah, with so many teams, like you said, Logan, bumped up to Division 5 this year. This area is a little bit emptier than what it normally is. Used to see like the common schools, Tinora, Archbold, and whatnot here, but yeah, it's.
And I'm just looking at Drew Pastor's Fantastic 50. He says if they're most likely in, that's what he gives for playoff chances. But if they get a win, they're looking at 98% chance of playing Crestview Ashland, which that would be a tough matchup. Yeah. But if they lose and they sneak in, the 87% chance of playing Cary, which they're the reigning state champs. So that's pretty tough.
What do you flip a coin? Who do you want to play there?
So regardless, but still, as a program to make it in, they were just short last year. But again, under new coach and getting in the playoffs, that would mean a lot for that program and that school too.
Yep.
They're playing Paulding this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think, too, Patrick Henry, though, if they sneak in and you're kind of in that bottom half of the 16 teams, I don't know. I kind of like the way they're playing right now and the way Nash Meyer's playing. Yeah, that's a scary first-round matchup for whoever Patrick Henry gets. So, again, I think there's a lot of teams that they can match up well and possibly get a first-round win against. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next division here. Division 5, Region 18, the Gauntlet Division we talked about all year long. Looking at some teams we covered, Swanton and Ottawa Glandorf have been eliminated according to Joe Eitel. Breaking down this region here, Liberty Center is number 1. Archbold is 6. Tinora is 10. Delta is 15. And that's all the schools we really cover in that division. So thoughts on this Division 5, Region 18 here, guys?
Oh, what a nightmare this region is. We talked about it all season. Region 18 is just a slaughter for anybody that's in it. Whoever comes out of this one has a good shot at getting to state. Or winning state, I should say.
I mean, I just I'm looking at the top teams there. I mean, Eitel's got it, Liberty Center 1, and Marengo is 3 there, Coldwater's 2. You got Elmwood at 4, Eastwood at 5, Archbold at 6. I mean, all teams we've talked about that are just going to be top 5 teams there, top 6 teams are just rough. Going to be great opponents for anybody to have to match up against. But, we're looking at Drew Pastor's. He's got Liberty Center, Eastwood, Elmwood, Coldwater, so he's got a little bit different order of what he thinks is going to happen. So,
I think one thing I really noticed from here, and obviously we're Tinora guys, so I had to look at Tinora on the Fantastic 50, but most likely first round playoff opponents with a Tinora win, which they play Hicksville this week. 25% chance Highland Marengo, 25% chance Oak Harbor, 23% chance Archbold. And I sent these guys this over the weekend. For Tinora to travel to Highland Marengo, I didn't know where this was. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes away, one-way trip. Could you imagine traveling that far for a first-round playoff game? It's almost to Columbus. I said, I don't even understand how this is still in the Region 18 because it is so far away. I would say that would probably have to be the furthest traveled game for probably a round one matchup in the area.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the region must block and then all of a sudden drop off or something down there. I don't know how a school from that
but
far down can.
I couldn't imagine being a football player, and I know even for college, we would typically leave on Thursday or Friday, go on the bus ride. We would check into a hotel, so we had a day to kind of unwind and kind of relax almost, but to go 2 hours, 15 minutes and then get off the bus, try to stretch out, try to get warmed up. Right. That's got to be tough, though.
And
so
the first two rounds, I believe, were on Friday nights, I believe. So these kids would have a full day of school and then make it.
Well, they'd probably have to get out early.
Right. But still, they still have to get up early and go through the motions of school. But
that's I just don't. I mean, I don't know how that worked out. How the state drew their lines. Maybe it's one of those like election remapping things where they just kind of scribbled in. Whoops! Somebody sneezed as they drew the line, and hey, how did this team end up over here? I don't know. But wow, that's just it's unbelievable that they have to travel that far. But I was kind of looking at teams that in the region top 16 that would travel there, that would be closer. I mean. Geez, everybody's kind of far away from those guys. I mean, they really are away from everybody else. Maybe Genoa. I'm not real sure where Edison Milan is, but Fredericktown, I'm not sure where that is. But man, that's just they're kind of in a realm of their own, I think. I'd like to know. I want to see who they play.
Yeah, I think just that whole region.
They play against Fredericktown. It was a Week 1 game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Which I would assume that probably has to be closer than 2 hours and 15 minutes away for them. So, I'm curious on how do you decide where to draw the. I would have thought you just take the state of Ohio, you draw a big cross in it, and you divide it into 4 regions like that. But looking at Highland Marengo, that's. If you go down Columbus, it's a little east and northeast of Columbus, I believe. So, again, that'd be quite a ways to travel. And then I was just also looking on Fantastic 50. Liberty Center's most likely first-round matchup would be Delta, so another conference opponent. So that'd be interesting to see. So.
It'd be good to actually see Delta in the playoffs.
They deserve it.
It's like a rebooted program where it was prominent 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. Went
through a little down period, and now actually starting to back on the upgrade. So it would be huge for them to actually qualify this year.
All right.
I mean, I'm looking at the top. See, you got Liberty Center at 10-0, Eastwood at 10-0, Elmwood 9-1, Coldwater 9-1, Archbold 9-1, Oak Harbor 9-1. I mean. We talked about this region being a buzzsaw. Look at just by records, those teams just, man, oh man, crazy.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about too, I think whoever comes out of this region has a very high chance of winning it all. So definitely a quality region, and I'm curious to see how this whole region in general plays out. There should be a lot of good football games here.
And I was going with if everybody wins the way they think they're going to win. So.
Right. All right, let's go ahead. A couple more divisions and regions here. Let's look at Division 4, Region 14. Looking at teams we cover here. Van Wert is sitting at number 5 right now. Going down the list here, Wauseon is at 10. Bryan is at 15. Napoleon is at 16. And Napoleon's at 3-6 record on the year. So possibility they could sneak in. So what are your guys' thoughts on this region here?
First year coach Swery at Napoleon. It's
do they get that many points from playing in that NLL?
About have to.
I mean, gee whiz.
Yeah. I played Bowling Green, I believe, this week.
Yeah,
so
and that's a must win. I'm looking here. Yep. They have a 60% chance now, but they need 4 and 6 to make the playoffs. So this is a big win, and this is again one of those make or break weeks, and it's all on the line to get Napoleon in. So
I just can't believe I'm looking at the Drew Pastor's predictions here, and he's got Bryan picked out of it at 5-5, standing at 17 at 5-5. Now, I mean, is Bryan getting their butts kicked because they play everybody that's, in NWOL? I mean, but you're looking at it's Liberty Setters, Wauseon, it's Archbold. I mean,
all those will be in the playoffs.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm like, well, how is Bryan getting left out at 5-5 when their losses are to quality opponents?
Yeah, and that's like I'm looking at too. He's given them a 56% chance now, and they're still in the bubble if they're 5-5. So another game that they need to win. I would assume if they win this game against Wauseon, that would be enough to push them in, because Wauseon being 6-3, I would think that would have to be enough to sneak them in.
Yeah, just looking at Napoleon, and they beat Northview, they beat Maumee, and they beat Springfield. I mean, are those 3 wins at this point enough to say, hey, these guys are...
It's all about the points.
I guess. I mean, those guys must have beat a bunch of really good schools. I'm a little lost on that one. But anyway.
If anybody's interested in that, I think on one of the 2 sites actually has like a breakdown on how to accumulate the tier 1 and tier 2 points. And after a while, it's just, I don't really.
I looked it up, and it's a lot of work, because you have to track what division these schools are in, because that's a factor.
Yep.
And again, it's like the wins of the school that you had a win against. Correct. So you have to go back and look at their whole schedule. Yep. So it's just, again, there's so much. That's why this is all into computer program to do this all for us, so you don't have to do all the math. So I think that could shake out pretty good. I still think Van Wert has a pretty good shot at winning some games. And, other than basically one mistake all year in that Wapakoneta game, I mean, they should have been 9-0 and probably, again, maybe up to a few more seeds, but they'll most likely get a home playoff game, and which is huge. And we talked about it too. And actually, we're talking about today at work the amount that, especially like bigger games, that home field advantage has. And we talked about, like, for example, Ohio State-Michigan game last year. Mm-hmm. You know how many false starts Ohio State had at Michigan because you couldn't hear anything. And that serves true for even playoff games. You get a big crowd there, and that's not, a lot of these schools aren't used to playing in front of that many people.
Or if you get a band that still plays.
Or we experience that, yeah. So that was something that
no playing during
no band playing during the opposing team's offense.
Like strolling through, sometimes if you stroll through Facebook, like videos pop up, and there was one where an official actually went into the crowd to have the band stop playing.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the students about it, and I said there was some arguing going on down there between a few different people about, we're not playing, we are playing, we're not, and whatever. So,
it was a funny 5 minutes.
Yeah, they were just walking over to get ready for halftime, and the band's kind of just beating on the drums, and the officials,
they stopped playing a couple
on
times.
Offense. And they were not supposed to be playing the music while they're playing, so they stopped it 2 or 3 times, didn't they? And,
oh wow!
Hey, you got to stop.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny, being in the box beside the Tinora coaches, and they're hollering back and forth with each other on the radio, like, what's going on? You need to tell them to stop. But we're trying to figure out what's going on. And they're like, oh, it's the band is playing. Yes. Oh, we're stopped for that.
Keystone cops them home for sure.
I guess the rules are you're not allowed to play while the offense is trying to call a play.
Makes sense.
But
all right, let's look at the last division and region. So Division 3, Region 10 here, and I believe we only have one team that we cover that's in this region, and that's Defiance. Looking right now, Defiance sits at number 11 in the rankings. Just looking at what they need, a win would definitely help them out a lot against a very good Wapakoneta team. But right now, Fantastic 50 has given them an already in chance. And looking at first round opponent, so if they happen to lose this week, which they're playing a very good Wapakoneta team, looking at playing Cloverleaf or at 30% or Mansfield Senior at 28%. So both 2 really good teams, but I don't know. I mean, again, Defiance is like one of those teams. Do you really want to play them first round?
Yeah, they just have such a diverse offense, like especially the running game. I don't think they're similar to Tinora. Like you head into the playoffs and you see Defiance on your line, and you're kind of like, and if you're a coach, you're going to go take a couple headache pills just because you got to prepare for a tough opponent. So,
I would think too. I think that Coach Cooper's got them ready enough to play. If you can even go out this week against Wapakoneta and put together a good performance heading into playoffs, I would feel pretty good about Defiance, and I would bet money that they win a first-round playoff game if they go out and they compete well this Friday, because they're going to ride that momentum and they're going to go into playoffs, and I feel like they're going to ride that confidence, and that's going to be enough to help get them a win. But I'm excited to see what they do. So, you guys have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I wish Coach Cooper probably wish you could have that Salina game back and just pull out a couple extra, drives in that one and.
That might have been enough to bump them up. How cool would that have been if Defiance was able to host a playoff game? So
that was a hot take earlier in the season, by the way.
It was. That's true.
And I remember you giving them some guff about that.
I did give him some guff about it, and then
riding that line.
And what do we think is going to happen? Probably not hosting. Probably not going to host a playoff game.
All right. Well, that concludes our little talk about playoffs and some of the things that could possibly play out. But just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Honestly, we could go on forever and ever, but we need to keep this try to under 2 hours.
Yeah, we're right about the 2 hour mark right now, so we still got to do our picks for the week. So.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're going to move into next. We're going to do our Week 10 game picks. So I'll kick it off here looking at the first game. Archbold 8-1 at Patrick Henry 5-4. Though Patrick Henry is coming off a huge win over Delta, Nashmeyer just went off that game. I think Archbold's going to be a little too much for Patrick Henry, and Coach Dominic's doing good things. Really good matchup between two head coaches, Coach Inselman from Patrick Henry and Coach Dominic from Archbold. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go Archbold on this one.
Yeah, very intriguing matchup. Honestly, it's at Patrick Henry. But, yeah, Streaks are playing well, only have one loss on the season, going with Archbold.
I'm right there with you, Keith, and Logan. I'm going with Archbold.
Same here. Go Streaks.
And Bryce had Archbold. So Archbold across the board. And again, Bryce cannot pick against Archbold.
Of course, Bryce picks.
Yep. No surprise there. So next game, Liberty Center 9-0 at Delta 5-4. After Delta's coming off a tough loss to Patrick Henry, and we've seen what Liberty Center has done all year. I think Liberty Center is going to roll into town and Delta, and they're gonna show them who's boss of the NWOAL this year. So I'm going Liberty Center.
Yep, Liberty Center and Coach Moeller just tuning up for the playoffs, taking the Tigers.
Yeah, Liberty Center's got this one. I don't think there's even a chance for Delta, so Liberty Center.
Yep, I think the Tigers are going to be fine.
And Liberty Center from Bryce, too. Next game, Swanton 1-8 at Evergreen 2-7. Interesting matchup here. We've really seen Swanton at the way the season started off for Swanton. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, but they've kind of showed that they can stick around, and they played Bryan tough last week. And Evergreen too. They're 2-7. They've definitely competed in more games this season, but at the end of the day, being at home at Evergreen, I'm going to go Evergreen in this matchup.
Taking Evergreen as well.
Kind of went with you on that one with the home field advantage kind of thing. So Evergreen.
Yeah, just kind of one of those games between two teams that are just trying to finish the season out, and I think Coach Karchner is going to get a third win here to end the season.
And Bryce at Evergreen. So Evergreen from all of us. Next game is going to be the NWO Sports Game of the Week, and it's a big one because Bryan needs it to help get them into the playoffs, and it's a big one for seeding. Wauseon 6-3 at Bryan 5-4, and I think this game's all going to depend on whether Sam Harold from Bryan is healthy and if he plays, because as a running back, he's been one of the top ones in the area for the whole year, really. But last week he was out, unfortunately. So we hope that he is healthy and gets to play, and we get to see a quality matchup. But I think him still coming off an injury, that's going to be enough factor. And Wauseon coming off, I don't know. I think I'm going to go Wauseon this game. Even though Wauseon's coming off a loss to Archbold, I think they rebound this week and then they get ready for playoffs. I'm going Wauseon.
Yeah, this is a tough game. It's going to be cold Friday night. Wauseon's a passing team. That football gets a little hard and slick on Friday nights when it's about 40 degrees. But, yeah, wow, this is a really good game. I mean, playoff implications for both. Wauseon could host a game, and then Bryan needs it to actually qualify. But I'm going with the Indians.
I think Bryan's got a lot to play for here. Wauseon, yeah, they're playing to see if they can get the host a game, but Bryan's fighting to stay in it. I think they've got a lot to lose here. They're going to be fighting like crazy, so I'm going with Bryan.
Man, I looked at this, and I stuck Wauseon in there, but the more I'm thinking about this, thinking about changing my pick to Brian. I just think Wauseon's kind of offense, we talked about how good they were doing, and they have really sputtered the last couple of weeks and got a lucky touchdown. And then last week, they didn't even score an offensive touchdown, correct? No. If I remember right. So
I believe they only had 80-something yards of total offense, or something.
So I'm switching my pick to Brian.
Oh, spicing it up. He literally changed it right now. So that doesn't happen too many times, but Tony had enough to change his mind.
Yeah.
And Bryce had Brian too, so we're pretty split. And looks like Keith and I are going Wauseon in this one, and the rest of you three are all Brian. So be a good matchup, and that's why it's the game of the week. So next game, Defiance 6-3 at Wapakoneta 8-1. We talked about this matchup, and if Defiance wins this, I don't know if it would be enough to push them into potential. I mean, it says with a win, looking at Joe Itel, with a win, possibly 7-11 for seeds. So there's still somewhat of a chance to host a playoff game. But I think after what we've seen out of Wapakoneta, their only loss in the season is actually to Marion Local, believe it or not. And season opener.
Wow.
Marion Local handed it to Wapakoneta too, which is, if that tells you anything on how good Marion Local is, and Marion Local is Division 6. So,
right.
So there's definitely no David Goliath comparison there, because I think you've got a Goliath and then you have a mega Goliath in Marion Local. So, but I'm going to go Wapakoneta, especially being at home. That's a tough place to play at, and Wapakoneta's shown that they're truly worthy of winning the WBL. So I'm going Wapakoneta.
Yep, taking Wapak as well. Hoping for a close game, honestly, from Defiance and Coach Cooper, but taking Indians.
Yeah, I think Coach Cooper's going to have them fight until the last play, but I think Wapak's going to come away with it.
Yeah, Wapakoneta. I mean, that's just they knocked off Van Wert to put themselves in this position, so they need to finish the deal.
And Bryce had Wapakoneta, so Wapakoneta from all of us. Next game should be a pretty good one, I would hope. So Antwerp 9-0 at Edgerton 7-2. Edgerton's coming off a tough loss to Tinora, but again, we've talked about a lot. There is truly, I believe, a home field advantage, because Edgerton playing in that valley at times is a tough place to play. The fans sit so close to the field. I think Edgerton, I think they rebound a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to get past a very good Antwerp Archers team. And we just got off the phone not too long ago with Coach Hale. I think he's going to have those boys ready to go, and I'm going to Antwerp, and they win by at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, I'm just following off what Logan said. This is actually like a great pre-playoff atmosphere, to kind of get you primed of what your playoff run's going to be like. I'm taking Antwerp, though, but it's going to be a great atmosphere there.
Yeah, walking into Edgerton's field there, it's a lot like walking into like the Big House from Michigan or walking into Penn State. Playing them at home is always tough. But I think Antwerp's they're doing so well this year. I think they're going to pull it out.
Yeah, I think Antwerp will handle this game just fine.
And Bryce had Antwerp. Next game, Tinora 6-3 at Hicksville 2-7. Though Hicksville's coming off a win against Fairview last week, I think Tinora, after what we saw out of their offense and defense last week, I think they're going to come out and I think possibly running clock maybe first half. I mean, Tinora Rams looked very well last week, so I'm going Tinora.
Yeah, this is the team you kind of wish you had in week 2, as we talked about earlier for Tinora. It's just, if you go back and rewind it and start a week 2 with the team you have now, and you'd like to see what happens versus Ayersville and Antwerp and whatnot, but you can't, and you can only move forward. But taking the Rams should be a easy win for them.
Yep, yeah, I'm going with Tinora here.
Yeah, you bandwagon jumpers. Everyone wants to go to Tinora now. They won a game. I see how it is. Okay.
When we pick against them, it gives them inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we heard earlier, right? I'm picking Tinora.
And Bryce had Tinora too. Next game, Napoleon 3-6 at Bowling Green 3-6. It's a big one, and Napoleon needs this to get in the playoffs, and that would be a huge accomplishment, especially in the first year for Coach Swery. I'm going Napoleon. They have a lot to play for in this game. I think they're going to come out, and this is a must-win for Napoleon. I'm going Napoleon in this game.
Yeah, big road game, taking the Dogs.
Yep, got to stick with the local team here, so Napoleon.
I'm jumping ship. I think I'm going to go with Bowling Green. They're playing at home, and I'm just not sure if Napoleon's going to have enough to take them out.
And Bryce had Bowling Green, so we're split on that one. Next game, Ayersville 6-3 at Fairview 0-9. I think this one, I don't think it's close. I think Ayersville comes back and they dominate this game. We saw them take a loss to Wayne Trace last week. I don't think they make that same mistake again this week, so I'm going the Pilots.
Yeah, Ayersville and Coach Mickey should have no problems. Coach McCord just is a learning season for everybody, but start next year is just flushing to start brand new. And but yeah, Ayersville.
Yeah, I think Ayersville comes out with a little bit of vengeance, kind of ticked off after last week. They're going to put up quite a few points against Fairview this week.
Go Snoopy and the Pilots.
And Bryce had the Pilots as well. Next game, Wayne Trace 4-5 at Paulding 1-8. County rivalry here, and definitely should be a pretty good crowd here. But I'm going Wayne Trace. They're riding high after that win against Ayersville last week. Though Paulding, they play tough, and we saw that firsthand. Yeah. They play aggressive. It's just a matter of putting it all together. They've got the athletes, but I think Wayne Trace gives it to Paulding. I'm going the Raiders.
Yeah, I took the Raiders, but I'm sure Coach Holden is going to be like, hey, you can't look past Paulding.
Exactly.
Because, I was really impressed by just after everything they went through, and, yeah, they're probably one of the hardest-hitting teams we've seen all season was over at Paulding a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wayne Trace on this one.
Go Raiders.
And Bryce had the Raiders as well. So next game, Van Wert 8-1 at Lima Bath 0-9. I think this one is just a massacre. I think Van Wert unleashes, and they're going to win this one pretty big. So
yeah, Cougars in a rout.
This is almost one of those games that Van Wert doesn't necessarily want coming into playoffs because it doesn't give you any kind of look coming into the first week of playoffs, but it does give you a chance to kind of work on some things that you may not otherwise try. So, yeah. Good week for Van Wert here to come out and do some new things. So I take Van Wert.
Yep. Cougars resting their starters by halftime probably.
Yeah.
Looking at the next game here, North Central 6-3 at Whiteford, Michigan 8-0. Again, did a little bit of research. From what I've seen, Whiteford's blown out some opponents, and I think it's just going to be too much. I know we talked to North Central player last week, and Michigan football is not the same as Ohio football, but I think Whiteford is the real deal. I think they beat North Central, so going Whiteford.
Yep, on Whiteford too.
Yeah, Whiteford.
Yeah, as much as I want to root for North Central, I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done.
And Bryce had North Central, so possibly gain a little bit of advantage if North Central wins. So next game, Eden 5-4 at Ottawa Hills 7-1, and this game's going to determine the TAC championship. So we talked to Cohen just not too long ago as well. So big game for them coming up. I think Ottawa Hills is just going to be a little too much. They're very talented. They're 7-1 in the season, so I'm going Ottawa Hills on this one.
Yeah, it was me and Logan did the Ottawa Hills and Tinora district baseball game. Ottawa Hills is the Green Bears.
Yeah,
Green Bears.
Green Bears.
You ever seen a green bear before?
Never saw a green bear.
Never seen a green bear.
Very interesting. But yeah, going with the Green Bears.
All right, yeah, I guess Green Bears it is.
Okay.
Not a black bear, not a brown bear, but a green bear.
Which bear is best?
Green bear. Dwight Schrute.
I picked Ottawa Hills as well.
Bryce again. He likes it. He does this on purpose.
Trying
I
to
swear.
get back in the game.
See, I'm not sure.
He is.
See, I'm thinking it. I want to make sure I don't finish behind Bryce. Maybe I should just pick everybody that Bryce picks. That
Yeah,
way
maybe.
I'm guaranteed to stay ahead of him.
I think Bryce is really trying to make up some points here. He's desperate, but I think he's going strong with the Bombers, and he's the only one that picked Eden this week. Next game, Montpelier 2-7 at Hilltop 1-8, and this one I think Montpelier and the Locomotives, they come out and they take care of business at Hilltop. I'm going Montpelier.
Yep, good way to finish the season for Coach Robinson to start for next year, taking Pillier.
Yeah, let's go Bombers. Come on.
I'm going Montpelier. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Montpelier.
Wrong team there.
Yep,
Hey, you got me. You said Bombers. Got me off the.
My bad.
No, I'm going with Montpelier. Sorry.
Still stuck in the last game.
And Bryce had the Locomotives too. Next game, Crestview 4-5 at Lipsick 3-6, which this game could get pretty interesting. Two teams we had higher expectations at the beginning of the season, but have struggled here lately. But I think Lipsick is going to take this one, so I'm going Lipsick.
Actually, I'm hoping it's the first quarter of the season Crestview that shows up, so I'm taking Crestview.
Yeah, I want to say Lipsick's going to get this one. I've been kind of pulling for Lipsick all season, but they just haven't been finishing out some of these games. So I'm hoping this one they pull out.
Yeah, I've got Lipsick picked, but I've been sitting here thinking about it again. Might throw a change, but I think I'm going to hold my ground here and go Lipsick.
And Bryce had Crestview, so we were pretty split on that one. Last 11-man game here, Columbus Grove 7-2 at Bluffton 5-4. Though Bluffton's been able to pull out a couple decent wins in the season, I think Columbus Grove is just going to be too much, and they're prepping for playoff play. So I think they end up winning this one pretty big. I'm going the Bulldogs.
Yep, same here. Coach Schaefer and the Dogs.
Bulldogs.
Columbus Grove.
And Bryce had Columbus Grove. So Columbus Grove from all of us. 2 8-man games here. Morenci, Michigan 2-6 at Holgate 5-3. I'm taking Holgate. I think they win big. They're coming after a tough loss last week to Taconcha, which is a fun word to say, but I'm going the Tigers in this one.
Yep, taking the Tigers.
Let's go Holgate.
Holgate.
And Bryce had Holgate. Last matchup here, Stryker 5-3 at St. Mary's Central Catholic 0-7. I'm going Stryker, and they win big, especially against a St. Mary's team that hasn't had a win all year.
Yep, taking Stryker.
Yeah, Stryker's been doing pretty well this year, so Stryker.
Stryker as well.
And Bryce had Stryker. So Stryker from all of us. Well, guys, that concludes our game predictions and the podcast. Closing thoughts going into Week 10 here.
Going to be a great week of football. I think the weather's actually supposed to be decent Friday night, if I remember right. It's supposed to warm back up just a little bit, so It's not going to be freezing cold. And not like I had to play in yesterday with the rain and sleet or snow or whatever it was spat me in the face the whole time. And Coach Ramirez kept using the towel that I'm trying to use to dry the ball off, kept using it trying to dry his glasses off so he could see what he was doing. But it should be a great night for football. And as we always say when we end the podcast, get out and watch some football this weekend. Yep. It's almost done.
Yep. Only got a couple weeks left.
Yeah, especially some of these teams that are pulling out some incredible seasons this year, like Antwerp and Defiance and teams like that have struggled over the past couple seasons and are now building a program that's something to be proud of as a community. So, yeah, get out and support them.
Yeah, especially some of these seniors that playing in their last home game, that aren't going to make the playoffs. Just get out there and support them this Friday night because that means the world to them and their parents. And so if you have a hometown game and the seniors playing in their last game, get out there and just, make sure that show your appreciation for everything they've done.
I was going to say, you took the words right out of my mouth, Keith. I said that this is going to be the last game for a lot of seniors. And seniors, if you're listening, go out there and give it your all. And just go out there and have fun. Last game of your careers for a good majority of players. But make sure you go out there, give it your all, and have fun. And again, I think the percentage of kids that go on to play college football is like 6% or something. So something crazy like that. So again, go out there, have fun. Fans, go out and support these kids and support these teams in your community and just have a good time with it. So like Tony said, the weather's supposed to be pretty fair, nice. Actually, I think someone's saying, towards 70 degrees. So that's perfect weather. Not too hot, not too cold. So don't have to worry about the poor weather that Tony was in the other night. So I don't think there's any precipitation in the forecast. So.
I guess, and you know where I was at? Edgerton.
Yeah, I feel like it's always bad weather over there.
Down in the bowl, it's like you're getting, I don't know, it's like a different climate down when it sinks down that hole. But
what is it like when you're in the mountains and stuff, like right over on the other side, there's like an effect that it has on the rain. That's what Edgerton has over there.
Yeah, but we talked about that facility so many times and how great it is. But whenever I go down there, I mean, even as a coach, as I walked down there yesterday, just kind of I was carrying the water jug and trying not to spill water everywhere. But it really reminds me of, is it Clemson that runs down the hill and touches the rock? And, it's just something like that could be really cool. And I think that's something that Edgerton can probably implement something like that as as kind of a pregame thing. We always talk about getting people amped up, and it would be kind of cool to implement something similar to what Clemson does there. It's going to be kind of neat.
Yeah, it's one of those fields that they hope you want them to see them upgrade the field, but not ever move the field.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just such a great venue. Absolutely.
Yeah, they could go in there and put turf, but don't elevate it.
No.
Dig it down deeper if anything else. I mean,
right.
But it was funny because we talked about the cars at the end of the field, and they were, because it was raining, everybody was out there in their cars yesterday. And they weren't fair weather, awesome. What I call fair weather fans. They were staying in their car.
All right. Well, that concludes the NWO Sports Podcast. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors: 3 Chord, Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tinora Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, and Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty. We would like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility at Batt and Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast. Again, stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.